my first question when they ask you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, a singer. And I never felt like too much support from the rest of the world. Like there was always like, oh, that's cute. What else?
Yeah,
I'm
but
like,
for real.
yeah, I always felt like there was the next, like, but no, but really. And then I never understood, like, I really didn't understand that question. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's nothing else, like nothing else.
Hi, everyone. This is the Ego Project, where we do the perfectly imperfect work of healing our ego wounds. And I am Lisa Heidel, and I'm here with
Christine Seidel.
And we are here with
Jordan Raye.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, everyone. So this is very exciting. What a conversation. Jordan, let's tell you a little bit about her. She is a singer-songwriter in LA, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And starting to gain some notoriety and starting to get well known. And so we thought, well, that's who we need to talk about for ego work. I mean, that is some serious ego work going on. I'm going to go ahead and read your bio, Jordan, and then we'll jump in. Okay. Jordan is a pop singer and songwriter from Israel, currently based in Los Angeles. Before launching her performing career, Jordan had written songs for and with many up-and-coming artists, including the legendary Kool the Gang. Jordan has worked for Disney and performed at the FTX Arena in Miami. She was an opening act for the Chainsmokers at the Bird's Nest Festival in Phoenix, and opened for Jason Derulo and El Tucan.
Yeah, it's a club in Miami.
Okay, thank you. She released her first single in 2020, Lemonade, which is really great, and has released 10 official singles since. You can also find her music placed on different TV shows and films on Netflix, Hulu, and Bravo. Yeah, that's the bio you want, right? Okay, and the bio you earn. That does not come easy.
No.
No. Is there anything you want to add to that before we jump into the questions?
As you know, I wrote children's books. I just love writing. So anything that writing bleeds into, I do, and I love.
Yeah. What are your children's books you want to share with our listeners?
So I have 3 children's books that are out. They're all in rhyme, so they're very songy, but I just thought like fun ways to teach kids, because kids don't like to just be told something, but if they learn it in a fun way, then like somehow it sinks in. I feel like it's like adults, you don't want somebody to tell you something. You just want to learn it like magically.
Yes, you do. Like you came up with that idea yourself, right?
Yeah, like, oh, they didn't tell me that. Like, I know I need to share because I know.
So true. So true. So what are your books? Do your books focus on like a specific theme, or are they stories?
So my first job in LA, when I moved to LA, I came with big dreams, but then I was like, oh, I actually need to make money. So my first job was working as a kindergarten teacher. And so through, like, I was there for, I think, 2 years. And then I just kept seeing things. Because like all day you just spend your day saying, no, don't do that, don't do. And I didn't like who I was turning into. So I was like, oh, it'd be nice. So I just took things from the class and I just turned it into stories that would just be a lot funner than me just saying, don't do that. Now it's like in a story and rhymes. And so one is about love, one is about sharing, and then one is following your dreams.
Oh, I love that. That so speaks to me. I work with a lot of kids, and I think that really is the first layer of attending to children, is teaching them in a language that they understand and that doesn't have shame, so to use rhyme and to use play as a means of teaching it, I think is a beautiful place to meet children, and really probably helps negate a lot of the ego work they have to do later in life when it's taught to them that way, right? So what a cool journey to where you are today. That's really awesome. I'm gonna have to find those books because I use rhyming a lot with my child clients.
Yeah, they're on Amazon.
Awesome.
We'll share that link in the description box. Yeah, and I've read them, so they're wonderful. Okay, I can say that. Okay. Well, let's talk about a little bit about your creative path, Jordan. Because, you know, going out there, performing in front of people, you know, it's your own work, right? So you're a
Yes.
songwriter, so you're sharing that. Can you kind of walk us down that path that you've been on toward where you are today?
As in the writing realm or the performance realm?
Yeah, let's start with the writing because people started performing your work first, correct?
Right. I mean, when I lived in Israel, I had a band and I was just performing in clubs but I didn't. It just came so naturally. Like I didn't know this was like a job. Like I'm like, this is so fun. And only when I moved to LA, I realized like, oh wait, this is like a serious thing. Like people. And then I started getting into like every session I could get in, like as a writer, as a vocalist, whatever they said. I was like, okay, I'm there. What time? I like left always my schedule open for any because here you have to be quick. It's like session today at 4, be there or don't, they'll be fine without you. So
somebody else will step up, right?
Exactly. So like, I just have to be free all the time. But yeah, writing, it's very different writing for others and writing for myself. Writing for myself, it's more, I feel like not anymore, but in the beginning, early stages, it was hard for me to express my true emotions that would be uncomfortable for another person, mostly in relationships.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't say it. And like that was always my biggest problem in a relationship. Like, why aren't you saying it? Like to say how you, and I just couldn't. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna leave and walk away. I couldn't say it. But then I'd write it in all my songs. Like all my songs is just like how I really feel. So that was, it just came so naturally. And then for other people, it's their story. So I always try to like, then I feel like I'm a therapist. I'm like, so what happened? And I know how that make you feel.
You are.
So yeah, that's kind of how it all, and everything happened so naturally because I feel like, I always had a big passion for it. So just,
yeah. Well, I think there's something to be said to be able to write for other people, because I think that does require a little bit of that empathic intuitiveness that you can kind of receive their story in a way and kind of manifest it within yourself from their perspective and from their feelings and not necessarily project your own. So I think that is in and of itself probably a great giftedness that you've brought to your clients and being able to hold space for them in that way.
And the greatest thing is you come to find that in every person's story, you have a story that's similar. You're like, yep, I know this character.
I know how that felt when it played out.
Yeah. And I know what you should do.
Exactly. Here's how I fix that. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I love that you recognize that it's both external work and internal work. You're not expecting someone to just give you something. You're out there engaging with the people, connecting with them, and then you're also going internal. Now, have you always done that, been kind of balanced between the two, or are you more of what Christine explains between an internalizer and externalizer? Are you more of an internalizer, would you say?
I'm definitely both because I think I go out a lot. But then I really need a lot of in. But like not a lot of people see that because they always see the but there's like days of in that just there's no out. It's just all in. Yeah. You have to. You lose yourself if you're too much out. And you can also lose yourself if you're too much in because then you're too much in your own like.
Yeah, you're kind of ruminating on your own stuff. And I think that's part of that intuitive, giftedness is like being out there is great. Like that's where you're doing your thing, right? Like you're lit up, you're like making things happen. But that withdrawal is where you make sense of things, right? Like you're kind of like, oh, let me come back to self so I can make sense of like all of the energy I've been expanding out there and like fill it back up so I can have more meaning and go back out.
Yeah, it's only like I get the most insight when I step back of situations because when I'm in it, I'm so in it. I'm like, I see things the way I see things in the moment, but then I step back and then I'm like, wait a second, that's different.
Well, and being in LA, I think any large city, but especially in where everyone is hustling to achieve, right? They're there for a reason, to create, to make something, to be known, to share their gifts with the world. And so what kind of ego work do you do? And what kind of ego work or egos have you encountered? Let's start with that one. I think that's an interesting for our listeners.
We know you can't give names, but just
No names. Okay. But what is the ego like there? And then how do you navigate it?
Cool. I mean, yeah, I mean, especially it's not even like it's in the industry, and in entertainment industry, you deal with all kinds of types of egos and people and characters, and everyone has a dream and everyone has a goal. Like what I found out when I came here, I didn't really see that in Israel, because Israel's kind of just like normal. But I feel like here, like every interaction, there's like a want from the person. Like, oh, what can I get out of this relationship? There's a lot of like wanting and needing and grabbing and opportunistic relationships.
Yeah.
So it's something like, as long as you know it, like it's easy. Once you have to play the game to survive the game. I feel like you just have to know, not take anything too seriously or personally, and just play with it. Otherwise you'll just be mad all the time, or scared, or unsure. You just have to play with it, because like that's just how it is.
Yeah, that's interesting. Sorry.
Go ahead, Lisa.
I've been reflecting a lot on in Tibetan Buddhism. They talk a lot about hungry ghosts, right? Almost like people want, and they'll take because they're never full, right? So it's that feeling of hungry ghosts, and you can't feed them all. You can't. You have to feed yourself, right? And so that feeling of hungry ghosts. So does that feel that way to you sometimes there?
I went through a lot. I've been here 7 years. And so I feel like the cycle has been like this. There's definitely times where I feel like I've just been giving a lot. And then there's times where I'm like, okay, I'm not. And then I'm like really not giving anything. People are trying to get sessions like, no. Like, so I'm still like finding the right balance between. But I think when I moved here, I was so hungry. So I would jump into anybody's hands in any studio in any session. And then you fall into some weird hands if you just say it. Oh, session today? Okay, you're a producer? Cool. And people here, like, and maybe everywhere, but like they talk really highly of themselves, and you're like, oh, amazing. But then a lot of times you find out like it's not the full truth, or like they made it sound really fabulous, but it's not exactly like how things went. And then you're like, huh. You learn a lot. So now you're like, okay, I can't trust every person.
Was that different? I mean, it was funny because you said, in Israel, it's just normal, right?
Yeah, and it's just like life.
So I think what I'm hearing you say is like in Israel, the industry felt like any other business, where you kind of navigated through the interaction similarly.
Well, the thing is, I wasn't in the industry in Israel, and maybe that's the difference, because I was much younger. I was I left when I was 19. But I wasn't in the industry. I had a band and we just toured. I didn't even know about the industry until I moved here, but here is like, if you're an artist, you're in the industry. Like if you're releasing music, like you have to deal with everything the industry is. You have to deal with the promotions, how to market it, who you're going to collaborate with. Is it the right producer for you? Like, I didn't have that. Everything in Israel just felt a lot easier. But also in Israel, people have normal jobs. I feel like you meet any person in LA, everyone's like something really grand. Like, oh, they just produced for Oprah, and then this guy, oh, he just did this. Or like everyone here is doing a really big things.
Right.
So you can get like really starry eyes.
Yeah, right. And then to find out that those interactions might be like that inflated resume a little bit, right?
Right.
Finding the authenticity and clarity in some of that projection of selling oneself.
Yeah, because if you just met a person in the first 2 minutes of the interactions, kind of all of his like highlight bio, it's kind of like, like it makes you think.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm gonna sit on that one for a sec.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Do you
Very
feel
cool.
that that's where you've been doing a lot of your ego work, is by your interactions with others?
Yeah, because I think it's observing others. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Yes, like I don't want to say like there's something wrong with that. And I think I had to learn how to be even more like that,
Mhm.
because that's how you get things here. Like if you like, you can't just be modest. Like as
Yeah.
much as that would be fabulous. You don't want, because you're like, oh, I don't want to show off. I don't want, but you have to. Like here, like you said, it's hustling. Like if you want to get somewhere, you have to get yourself there. And
Right.
you're not gonna get yourself sitting in the corner and being, oh, I'm not gonna share all the great things I've done because I want to be like modest or whatever. You have to like say, yes, I did this. Hire
Yeah.
me. You have
Yeah. So finding that alignment between I know I need to put myself out there so that I can be seen, so I can be heard, because I believe in what I'm doing, and I see value in it. But yet having that authenticity where when you share it with somebody, you're not coming off as overly inflated, right?
Yeah, you have to have the confidence, but also like the good social manners. Like it is like a thing you have to play with. And you learn a lot by observing others and seeing like, oh, that really worked for them. So
I
like
love
how
that.
can I
Yeah.
put that in
Yeah.
my
Right. Learn by other people, and kind of like, I think we put so much into, like, it's probably especially like in your industry, like I have to be so different. I have to do this so different so that I stand out, or people who are branding themselves or something. And it's like, no, like see what interests you or how other people are doing it that resonates, and then do your own spin on it. Right.
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
It's hard. Like how much more unique can you be?
I
Like back
know.
in the day, it was like people would like color their hair or shave their head, and it was like, whoa. But now it's like, okay.
Yeah,
It's like a lot, everyone's like now we're like everyone's just like doing their own thing, but they're
exactly.
also the same in the same time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Unique and crazy and avant-garde and all that stuff is kind of like commonplace now. So, which
yeah,
I mean, I think is good in some ways. Like that means that your real talent and like what you're really bringing is what is really going to be seen and heard, and not necessarily that first line of presentation. That definitely helps. But people are looking for, I think as a collective, we're looking for more depth,
I
more
think
more
so. Authenticity is the new unique, right?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
be yourself, show up, and everyone's like, wow, that felt really good. That
yeah,
person was real. Yeah.
right,
And now you're unique. Yeah. Before the
right.
season. Yeah, I love that. Um, so with your songwriting, can you kind of talk us through your process and what draws you to being a songwriter? Because I mean, you can always produce other people's work, but you choose to share your deeper emotions, like you said, feelings on a public stage. And I'm a writer, so I understand that. So can you kind of talk us through that process?
So it changed a lot, but right now the way I write is I almost write every day, and not every day is a great song, but I just dedicate at least 2 hours to just writing because it's magic. Like I never know if like I just have to show up for it, right? So I usually put a track on and I put my like headphones on my mic and I just like it's almost like a meditation. I just sing like melodies and it's like it starts with gibberish, but I just find the melodies I really like. And once I really like the melodies, then I like usually there's a bunch of words too that somehow are cool. And then I just kind of work with it. And a lot of times it's half songs, a lot of times it's really bad ones. And sometimes they're good ones, and then I like progress them later on.
Mm.
But kind of like I like to just see what comes out.
Wow, that
Yeah.
sounds so much like what you were doing when you came to teach kindergarten, right? You like withdrew to that space to just see what came out. So like really leaning into that natural like trueness of you and
Yeah, because
finding joy in it.
yeah, I feel like also this is a lot of times I just don't know how I feel. Like it's hard. I don't know if how
Yeah.
people feel, but I just feel like sometimes I feel like a little sad. I don't know what this is. And then I have to like dig. I'm like, where is this coming from? Like fourth grade? Like I don't know. It's just so random.
I always say that too. Like, I don't know what I feel until I write it.
Mhm.
Right.
And then I write it down. I was like, oh, that's what's going on here. It's that kind of that purging out of yourself so that you can then, process. Yeah. So I love that you have found that your avenue for that. Some people never do. So I love, and I hope that people listening will now feel they have permission. They'll hear you saying, hey, this is how I do it. Maybe they'll try your way. Maybe they'll try another way, but they'll be able to process that way. That's wonderful.
Yeah, and
Do you
it's so
find,
easy.
sorry.
It's so easy for anybody. You don't even need a mic. Like you could literally put a YouTube like track and record yourself on your phone. It's like you don't even need a setup.
That's such an encourager for people who are like looking for a way to process through things, because I'm definitely not a writer. Like, when I would be like, I'm going to journal, and I would try to be like, dear journal, and nothing would come out. Right. But for me, like, having stuff come into like my awareness, oftentimes, it's dancing, or it's being in nature. I will sketch, right? Like, so there are ways to get whatever just seems to be kind of resonating in you, that you're like, this feels like it's welling up a little bit, that needs to be addressed. Good, not so good, indifferent, but just sensing a space to process through it.
Yeah.
Do you feel vulnerable sharing your personal music on a larger platform? Like, can you share a little bit about how you do that work of vulnerability?
It's funny because I never felt vulnerable, because I'll tell you why. Because when it's in a song, people just think it's a song. And that's why it's so easy to say what I want to say, because I'm like, oh, it's just a song. But, then you can tell the whole story of like how somebody made you feel. But you're like, oh, like it's almost like you're hiding behind a song. So it's not really, I never felt really vulnerable. It almost felt more freeing to let it out in a song. I don't know. Even when I perform, I always tell even the backstory. Like I'm like, oh, I wrote this about, this stupid boy or whatever. And I don't know. I never feel like uncomfortable.
I
Well,
love that.
I think that like that's really a testament to like, you investing kind of in knowing yourself, and maybe it's that withdrawal time, maybe it's your own like, family of origin story of where you felt very secure in who you were, and that was really reinforced. I'm curious though, because putting yourself out there in the way that you put yourself out there, like where people are literally looking at you and people are literally hearing you for a living, truly, right? I always feel like if you're putting yourself out there in any way, shape, or form, it will bring about other people's insecurities about themselves or what they're doing or this, that, and the other. Have you encountered, some of that troll feedback to where, they just, it could be like the way your hair was that day, they're like, her hair was awful and therefore she's the worst.
It's funny. I mean, never when I performed, at least not to my face. Like everyone's been very supportive. And I usually invite like, my people, my friends, my family, so but I had one video. I think the only mean time I experienced it was on TikTok, because I had one video that went viral and it was horrible. It was horrible. And like I wanted to delete it like every day, but the numbers were so high. I'm like, oh, I finally got like I think it went over 1 million. And there was just horrible comments. Like every morning I'd wake up nervously. I'm like, I gotta delete the bad comments, because there were just, and it's hard because you can't even focus on the positive. Like I was like reading like, oh, I love it. I just was scrolling through all those, and then I saw like horrible. Like they're so mean. Yeah, that definitely made me feel, when you get like your head gets a little cold and you're like, oh, like that's kind of the feeling I got when I saw these like bad, mostly because I'm like, wow, like this person like went out of their way to just tell me bad things about my song.
Yeah. And I always say, listen, if you're getting those comments, you're clearly doing something, right? You're doing something right. You're putting yourself out there. You are, taking something that's really important to you, that you feel gifted in, and that resonates with others. And so like there's that layer of it's going to come, because you doing that resonates with somebody else who's not doing it, and that makes them feel a certain way about themselves. So I was really curious about that. And I think that that's a very valid feeling, to feel very kind of like taken aback by that, because you're showing up to this place and from a very pure, like your intentions are very pure about just wanting to do something you love and to do it well and help others with it. But that's not where everybody is at in their own journey. And so yeah, like being able to understand that that's a facet of putting yourself out there.
Yeah, no, and it was crazy. I checked every person too. I wanted to see like, who is this person? Most of the times, well, because look, if it's from a reputable source,
right,
it'll have more weight. But most of the people I checked were like, they didn't even have a post that they released. They weren't even creating anything. So I was like, okay, like, I'm trying.
Exactly. And that's what you have to remember is oftentimes when people show up in that energy of unkindness, or maybe they're not even commenting on your music, they're finding something else to say. It really is their own woundedness that's coming from,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I needed you back then. No.
I know. Well, girl, with all the music and stuff you got coming out, I'll be on standby.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, and I love that it didn't, I think so often people retreat when they feel attacked, right? Understandably, it's a natural. We want to pull back and protect ourselves. And I'm sure there was some of that. I mean, it's the process, right?
Yeah.
And but it sounds like you're like, okay, I licked my wounds a little bit. And like you said, you didn't just take it at face value. You dug deeper. You're like, let me explore this a little more. Let me look at your photo. Let me see what you're doing. And then I'm going to choose to adapt what you say, or, if it doesn't resonate, I'm throwing it away.
Yeah.
And I think that's so good, because I think people, especially in today's world, with, social media, and people are anonymous, they hide behind masks, and they feel free to say anything that they want. And it's different standing in front of someone and saying something cruel, right?
Right.
You don't get to see their reaction. You don't get to take the consequence of that. And that you kind of pushed through that and said, no, this is what I'm here for, and I will overcome that. So that's wonderful. And congratulations on getting that type of traction, because there's something there. It's obviously on your path that this is supposed to be happening for you. And the more you do, it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're officially troll verified, right?
Yeah, I got it. I did it. I got my badge.
Okay. Well, and Christine mentioned your origin story, and I think that's so great because, and full disclosure, I actually know Jordan's mother, Laura, who is a warrior. Okay. And I've met her father, and wonderful people. And I think that Jordan is Jordan because, one, she's born herself, but also the guidance that she's received. Do you want to talk a little bit about that for our listeners?
My family?
Yes, if you're comfortable with that.
Oh yeah. So my mom, yeah, she's my best friend. We're very close. She was because I was digging down, like, when were the first time, like, when did I notice my passion for writing? And then I was thinking, my mom she writes poems. And I remember when I was a little girl, you like go through your mom's things, and I would find like her poems, and I was kind of like obsessed with them. I'm like, Mom, can you read it? What is this? And I think I'm like, did that start everything? But it's hard to tell. But that was definitely an inspiration, and she was always encouraging. And she always says she's proud of me. Like, these things help, it's a tough world out there.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that goes to kind of what we said, like what you were doing with, your students as a teacher, was like you tuned into them and you were kind of like, what's working, what's not working for them. And it sounds like that's kind of what your parents did, is they tuned in when they saw this desire, and this giftedness within you, and were encouraging of it, and were willing to shift you know, how they attended to you, knowing that that was something that you really loved and lit you up. And it probably didn't help that mom, you know, attached to that a little bit in her creativity as well. But what a cool thing to be able to see your parents' support and encouragement around something that, you know, I'm sure, Lisa, you've probably heard this, just, you know, everybody's like, oh, you know, when you tell your parents you want to be an artist, they're all like, well, guess you'll be living in the basement till you're 40, right?
I know. I don't think they thought I was serious for a long time. I do remember, not on their side, but my external, especially I was like living in a small town. Yeah, like everyone's, you know, right, like just small town life. And my first question when they ask you, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, a singer. And I never felt like too much support from the rest of the world. Like there was always like, oh, that's cute. What else?
Yeah,
I'm
but
like,
for real.
Yep.
yeah, I always felt like there was the next, like, but no,
Yeah.
but really. And then I never understood, like, I really didn't understand that question. Like, what do you mean? Like, there's nothing else, like nothing else. And then only when I was 18, that's when I started like that, like all the doubts kind of
Yeah.
like trickled in. I was like, oh, everyone's going to like college. I'm like, oh, should I go to college? And I did. And I when I graduated, I was like, okay, now to the real thing.
Check, I did it. Now I can go on.
But I think that's what inspired me to write the book for the Follow Your Dreams, because you shouldn't listen to anybody, because a lot of times your parents can be very supportive, but like maybe your friends are not really, or you know, just literally the guy who sells you bread across the street said something weird
Have something
when you
to
were
say.
at a very fragile age and you
Yeah.
believe him, you know. That's why I'm like, don't listen to anybody. Like if you want to do something, like just work really hard and do it. Like Joe Schmo doesn't know what you're capable of, you know.
Not at
Well,
all.
and I think so often, especially in the arts, when you say, you know, I'm going to be a singer, or I'm going to be a writer, or sculptor, you know, a poet, they automatically replace the word the thing you want to do with famous
Mm-hmm.
or well known, right? And it's like, no, they're not synonyms, right? Like you were playing in a band, you know, doing your apprentice age, learning your craft, learning your skill, and then you go to LA. Now, will you be famous? I don't know. I mean, you're getting well known. I think you work hard. I think you're amazing. I think your music needs to be heard. I hope you reach that level if that's what you want. But I think it sounds like no matter what happens, you will always be singing. You will always be a singer.
Right.
No one can take that away from you. And I
Right.
think people, that little shift in perspective can help people be supportive, I think, of creatives in the world. What are your thoughts about that, Jordan?
I think it's definitely that. And I also think it's like money. I think people like see dollar signs. So like they're like, there's not a lot of money in that, especially like unless you make it big. Just as like an independent songwriter, I'm like, it's hard unless like you hit those big artists, you know? So I think people see that and they're like, there's no hope for her. Like she better get like a real job that pays money.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like a 9 to 5, you know. But
Yeah.
I think now with social media, a lot of more people are not doing the regular jobs. Like most people I know are really doing odd jobs, which you're like,
Yeah.
how do they make money out of that? Like it's weird. Like, so I think the world is definitely changing from when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a little bit of that deconditioning of what is success, you know, is that really a financial status that you have achieved? Or is it about doing something you love and making an income that feels good to you know, regardless if it's X, Y, and Z, or if it's this, but you know, that lifestyle and you being able to do what you love, is satisfying. And I think as a collective, we're starting to recognize that, you know, the more and more and more and more and more doesn't always satisfy. But I think artists are having more of a space to be able to be supported in that, in society, saying, hey, listen, like living small, you know, while you're pursuing dreams, there's something admirable about that. Yeah.
How did you, how did you start being discerning with the work that you accept in the direction you're going with your career? Is there anything like, I check in with my body. How does this feel in my body? Does it feel comfortable? And, if it doesn't, then I say no. If it's that, if it lights me up, then I follow that path. Like, how did you learn how to be discerning?
Great question. I think when I moved here, I kind of said yes to every opportunity. I wasn't really too selective, and I was also building my, you know, resume and connections of people. But I think when I started feeling more like secure with my accomplishments, I think now I just look at, will I grow from this? Will this make me better? Would this get me more? Like it has to be worth it now for me to say yes to and give my time. Like, is it worth my time? Like, because I could be writing a new song in this time. Like, is it going to be worth it for me? It more is just like, am I gonna grow? Because I think my focus is now is just growing and growing and growing. Like I don't want to stay always where I am. I want to just keep evolving and growing and see where the path will take me. So I say yes to those opportunities. Or just sometimes it's just the person. A lot of times, if it's a person inspires me, and I'm like, wow, like I like something about their energy. I'm like, I want to like learn from whatever they're doing seems to be working. So then maybe I'll be like, okay, yes, like let's work together. Or you never know what can happen.
Yeah. That's so fun. That's so interesting, because what I'm hearing from you is kind of this internal GPS system where it's like something kind of is presented to you and you're like, that's a yes for me. Or something is presented to you and you're like, I think that's a no, or it's a maybe. So I'm not jumping at that. Whereas before, maybe a little bit of your conditioning, because you came out here and you're like, I just need to do it. You were saying yes to things that maybe weren't really a full yes for you. So it sounds like that discernment is really about kind of like pulling within yourself and whatever the theme is, whether it's growing in this season or maybe in the next season, it'll be like, is this a creative project that's authentic to me or whatever? You're listening for that yes, at a deeper level than maybe you did when you first came here, feeling maybe a little like overwhelmed with the opportunities.
Right. It's like when you're hungry. I just think because we were talking about hungry, but it's like when you're hungry, you'll just eat anything available. You're just like, oh, there's nachos. Okay. But when you're not hungry and you're satisfied, you'll choose the things that will make your body feel good, or that you value. You're like, oh my God, this was like handmade, whatever. Was boiled for 17 hours. Like I want that.
Yeah,
that's
so
a good analogy. It's true, right? Yeah. And I think that's across the board. If you're hungry for attention, if you're hungry for love, if you're hungry for validation, you're just going to take anything anyone's giving you, and it may not have substance to it.
Right.
That's
Or hurt
such a
you
good
even.
analogy. Yeah.
Be harmful.
Yeah. I like to kind of describe it as oftentimes when we haven't gotten to the point where we can discern our authority and discern, our clarity, we'll go to wells that only have rainwater in it, right? And we'll be like, oh, I'm so thirsty, I'm dehydrated, I'll just drink, there's water in here, but we stay there trying to drink the rainwater when really we need to pivot and find that deep spring well. And that's hard when you show up to a new space, because it does feel dehydrating at times. Like I need to pay bills, or I need to get my name out there sooner than later. And so I think that like all of those seasons are just teaching us to get to that place where we have a lot more authority in our own clarity.
Right. Yes.
With integrity in an environment that is filled with hustle, like sometimes you run into people who lack integrity. And I don't know, have you ever questioned your own with your decision making?
My integrity or other people's integrity?
Yours first and then other people's, yeah. Or do you let your integrity lead?
Yeah, I mean, for myself, I haven't had issues with myself really. Yeah, it was mostly for others. It's always like the people who make the big decisions. Like I'm making my own decisions, but I'm not really making decisions for others. But people who make decisions for others, that's where I find I'm not like I'm like, how much can I trust them? Like if I'm in their hands, or that's when I'm like, usually like for me, everything's really fair. I find like, it's really easy. Everyone's kind of on the same ground. But when there's coming a person above you, whether it's like a manager, a label, a big DJ or producer, that kind of will take whatever we create and it's in his hands. A lot of times I'm like, oh, are they doing the right thing? Like, is this a fair game? That's when I'm like usually questioning.
Yeah. Especially if they show up with a little bit of that inflated self, right? Like, I'm this person and I can do this for you and that for you, and I'm going to make it amazing. And
oh my gosh.
Want it to be. And then you start watching them and you're like, wait a minute.
The things they tell you here, I swear, like the things I was promised. Now I like, unless there's a contract, I'm like, okay, like back in the day, I would get so excited. I'm like, call everybody. I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't believe it. And now I'm like, so like, okay, like give me a contract. I'm not gonna get excited yet and tell the whole world.
I'll wait for that email, then I'll
yeah.
then I'll celebrate. So
I think that's a very good learning, the learning curve, because in the creative world, as a writer, I get a lot of people are like, oh, I've written the greatest American novel. I'm like, good for you. It's like, I don't know. I haven't written that and I worked really hard. So, and it's also like, yeah, if you want to write it, go write it. That's your thing, you go do that. But people, they want to, we want to bring you on and we want you to do this. And once again, give me the contract and then we'll talk. Yep. Yeah, that's the learning curve. Christine, do you get clients who come in who have like a pull toward a creative occupation or vocation, and they're resistant or they're confused or uncertain? And how do you deal with them? How do you guide them?
It's interesting actually this past week, and it's, maybe it was the full moon that we had where people were really coming in trying, talking about the grappling of, I'm moving in this direction, which a lot of them are in college or they're on a professional track, but they continue to hear this whisper of something that is, probably deemed not as, successful or isn't going to bring about the lifestyle that they want, whether it's doing something with the environment or with nature or something like that versus, computer information systems, or it's something creative and within the arts. And I think that, really when they come in, they're very unclear, and so you see them very undecisive, and in a conversation you can actually hear the ego say, I'm doing this class and I'm learning SQL, but then I found myself over here hiking the woods when I was supposed to be studying, right? So you see not only their narrative of I should be doing this, but I find myself here. And that lack of clarity really keeps them in a very undecisive place, right? And so the way I kind of respond to them is, start finding and building a community, whether it's an online community of resources or a community in person of people, where they're moving in and out of your space, talking about the thing that you're doing and the thing that lights you up. Like, what is that? Is it environmental data processing? Is it sustainability analytics, for something like the example I gave? And then start moving in and out of communities that are doing that or talking about that, because just like Jordan said, the more you do that, things start pinging for you, right? And it's kind of like, that's a yes, I like that, that's cool. And that we get to realize it doesn't have to be an either or. And that's a beautiful thing about our workforce now, is there's so many creative different things to do where you can make an actual living doing something that lights you up. We just maybe haven't seen that in our scope of influence at this time. So I always encourage people to not do an either or, but to experience community that may have that blended. And if you blend them and there's still something that's like a heck no, I'm not doing that, then you have clarity. and you can shift your focus. You can shift your lens towards the thing that really does light you up, because that's where you're supposed to be. Not in the ego, conditioning of, you should be doing this. My parents said I'll never make it if I don't do this, right? Because at the end of the day, you're going to go pursue that. You're going to do it. And guess what's going to keep on calling you back? The same thing that did, 5-10 years ago. So there really are ways to go explore all the things that light you up. And if that includes something you feel like you should do, you'll find it. If not, you'll learn to pivot.
That's wonderful advice. And I want to lead over to Jordan, because everything that Christine just says, we've all been there, right? We've all felt that feeling of, I don't know which way to go. And it could be a career choice, relationship choice, personal, where do I want to live? And, all of that. And if you're feeling that angst, there's data in there. Right? Let's get curious and explore that data that we're getting from our body and the environment. That's so good. So Jordan, for you, have you felt that through your journey?
Oh, my whole life. I think it's my natural state. It's funny. I remember the first time I was 18, I felt so lost. And like, that was the word I could like describe. I'm like, so lost. And so every time I feel lost, I like leave where I am, thinking that when I go somewhere else, I'll find whatever I'm looking for. And I never find it. Cause like, like years later, I was just lost all the time. I'm like, wow, I just need to like this like place more of being like lost.
Yeah. It's whispering to you, right? Like in that lostness, there's something that's whispering to you that it's hard for us to hear, because we're looking for that big change. I think Lisa and I talked about that in a podcast recently. We're looking for that big change that's going to fix everything, right? And it typically isn't.
Well, the thing is, every change is what happens all the time. Like, if anything, you can be sure there's always going to be change. And I think it's just like learning to kind of dance with the change. Like, I love change, but when you change so much, I feel like maybe when you can get lost all the time. Because like a second things are like unpleasing or unsatisfying, you're like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be because I need to be happy. Like, so then you you book a flight somewhere.
Well, I think so many people think happiness is the lack of things making them unhappy. Like, if there's nothing making me unhappy, I must be happy. It's like, oh no, happiness has challenge in it. Happiness has struggle in it. Happiness has, growth in it. It's inherent in it. And, choosing the things that light you up, that you're excited about, that's happiness. It's not the lack of these things. It's following the path that keeps unfolding in front of you with an open heart, I believe. So I love that you said that, because we just did, the ego last episode was on navigating change. So we so agree with that. It is not an easy path when a change needs to be made, but maybe sometimes the change is internal, not external. Yeah,
I feel like it's always internal. But that's why you have to go like to make the change external too, so that you're like one with the change. Because if you're inside changing but your friends are the same, your habits are the same, then I think there's like a disconnect, because you're like, I'm feeling this but everything around me says that. And I'm like, that's why you have to that's why I always find when I move someplace, like, to me that's the most inspiring moment, is because like everything's like fresh and I can just reinvent whatever I want to reinvent. But when you're always in the same environment, same people, you kind of like reliving the same day over and over again in a way.
Yeah. And I think what you probably experience is that like, it doesn't necessarily, even if it's like an external change, like that experience allows you to kind of come back within yourself and be like, hey, now I'm withdrawing, now that I've done this change, whether it's move or I'm shifting this routine and structure I have, that shift actually gives you an opportunity to kind of withdraw for a little bit and be like, how does this feel today? Does this feel right? And I think oftentimes people spend, like you said at the very beginning of this, they'll spend too much time internally being like, shouldn't I? Right? Rather than, and everybody's made differently, so there's no judgment on that. But, doing things and then having that internal check-in or internal check-in, then doing things, that dance is so important in order to navigate any kind of change that you make.
Okay. Jordan, one thing I love about your music is your lyrics are so deep, yet they're in, oftentimes wrapped in, pop music, pop melody, right? Is right.
Yeah.
And I love that because it draws you in and you're listening, you're like, oh, that's hitting me. And then you end up repeating the lyrics because it's in your head, right? And and it's almost a bit like a mantra.
Right.
What I'm hearing. And you end up repeating. I was like, I don't know if she knows she's doing that. Do you know you're doing that when you're writing the lyrics? I mean, it feels like a mantra a bit.
It is. I really believe the songs we listen to are mantras, like whatever it may be. And I think that I've been going through a change myself also with like how I want to write also with that in mind. That's actually, it's interesting you say that because that's what I've been thinking of lately. Because I've noticed also I've been manifesting things with the songs I write, and sometimes in the sad songs. And I wrote about a story that didn't even happen, and then the story happened, and I'm like, wait a second, I need to write something different. But even like I have a song called Big Girl Boots, and originally that song started as a very sad, depressing song about how everything's going wrong. And then I wrote Big Girl Boots to that girl who wrote to me, the me that wrote Everything Sucks. I wrote Big Girl Boots, and it's like, put your big girl boots on, like you can do this, like no talking about the past. And so that actually was born out, that was a mantra I wrote for the previous song, pretty much, that I never released and I will never will. But that was, so yeah, it is a mantra, and I want it to be a mantra, and I want to write more songs geared with that in mind as well.
Oh, that's
Because
good.
if you're gonna have it in your head, if it's gonna get stuck, even if it's a lyric, I would like it to be encouraging, to like, for all of us.
Yeah, like as a therapist that does a lot of look at things, like speaking to those parts, right? So having those big girl boots speak to a part of you, right? Like, and especially using something like a mantra is very cathartic, and it resonates at a deeper level of the subconscious. So to hear like your music is helping people even subconsciously as they hear it, like allowing that mantra to speak to the part of them that needs, maybe we won't get to hear Big Girl Boots, maybe we will, but speaking to that part that needs that, and I think that's what's so cool about creatives, and both you and Lisa can share this connectedness, is the cathartic work that you do not only for yourself in coming up with creations, but how that resonates for other people that may be stuck in a conditioning or belief system that does not serve them and has held them back. But reading something or hearing something and it ping and be like, that spoke to a part of me, and that carries them through like a healing journey for that part. It's just very cool to know that that's something that you bring to all of us.
Like, what piece of advice would you offer someone who wants to go down the path that you're on as a singer-songwriter?
I would say collaborate a lot. Collaborating definitely made me grow as an artist. Because then you get to play with different genres, different styles, different writings. You get to play with your words, with their words. I feel like you grow a lot with writing consistently with other people. And then I would just say write as much as you can. You just have to work on it. And if you really love it, you will make it. Like, this industry, if you want to make it, besides just having it as a hobby or like a therapy for your own self, I feel like you have to really, really, really want it. This is not like, you have to wake up every day, and every day you do one thing that's towards that, whether it's make one connection with a producer or whether it is sit for an hour and write a song. Like, every day has to one little step towards that love. You kind of have to water it always and make it happy,
Yeah.
So
That's good
grows.
advice. Yeah, thank you. Okay, do you have any question for Jordan, Christine?
No, I just want to say your energy is very, it just feels really good. And I think that that's, that last comment about you have to really want this. I think that that speaks to just kind of like your connection to knowing you're supposed to be doing this, like a knowingness of who you really are. And, when you came into this world, what purpose was spoken into you. So I just want to say that, like, your energy feels amazing, and it was just lovely to be around it for a little while.
Thank you. It was lovely to be with you. So I was like mid conversation. I'm like, I love these girls. Like, can we make this like a regular meeting?
Oh, we're open anytime. You are always welcome. Come join us. We are going to be sharing work, Jordan's work, in our description. There will be on YouTube. You'll have some links over there that you can just click over. You go listen to Big Girl Boots. I think everyone should have that on their listening list. So we will go ahead, sign off, like and subscribe, please share. And anything else, Christine, you want to offer?
No, just a reminder that we will put Jordan's links, all her links,
Everything
down in the details, so everybody can find her quicker and faster. So
yes, and make sure to encourage Jordan to come back and join us.
That's right.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.